Hey folks, today we're out here in northwest Houston, just off of 290. I'm doing a job with my buddy James, standing here behind me. James is a good friend. I've mentioned him before in my videos. I got 2 hives out of his place, and he works for he works for this place here, and they've had bees in the floor of this little storage room for quite some time. He actually called me on this job probably 8 months ago, but anyway, you know how things go. We're going to finally get into it today. It's about 60 degrees right now, a little overcast. It's 7:15 in the morning, and the high is 70 degrees today, so it should be a good day to play with bees. So we're going to get into it here. I'm just going to show you what's going on, and then we'll get started tearing things open. So, see what I can see. Alright, so where the bees are going in, we're not seeing any activity with them yet this morning. They're going in right here on this corner in the floor joist. I don't think they're in the wall up here. It'd be nice if they were, because walls are easier than floors in my opinion. But I went inside and I did the old knock test to try to find them. Laid down on the floor, knocked around on the floor a little bit, and I finally heard them buzzing. There goes one, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just had one come out, but I heard them buzzing a little bit, so then we'll show you inside here on the floor. It should be relatively easy, I hope. I just don't know exactly where they're at. So I laid down here on the floor and knocked, and I could hear them, you know, buzz at me a little bit. So we're going to peel out the rest of this vinyl flooring here, so we've got some room to work. And we'll start by cutting out just this section of plywood to get a look in there and see what we see as far as where they might be, and then we'll open it up from there. So we got our floor joist and the floor running this way. We've got 2 little nail heads right here to tell us we're running this way. I've got a stud finder in the truck I can grab out too, just to do a check. What we'll do is we'll just cut it right along the middle of the stud here, around the nails, and then take out just this section. And like I said, when I knocked, I heard them buzz right here underneath me, so this should expose at least part of the colony, and then once we get in there and can see, then we'll see what the rest of it looks like.
Good place to start.
Well, folks, I was wrong, at least for now. I didn't think there was any bees on these combs, but we reached under there with a flashlight and looked, and there's a good cluster of bees all on these combs. So we're hopeful that they're just right here. We're going to start here, start cutting out these combs, and then looking for the queen, and we'll see how they act as we're working. We'll see how, you know, if they start running back over that other stud, that'll tell us there's probably a nest over there. But right now, we're going to start right here. So this is always a tough one. Lay down here on the floor. Got my queen cage in case I find her while we're working. And we're just going to start cutting out combs. It's never easy to reach up underneath the floor like this.
Did they build that to the bottom of the floor, or?
They didn't get all the way to, they attached it to the bottom of the plywood, yeah. They're not all the way down to the ground though, they won't touch it to the ground. What I'm doing is just running my hive tool on the tops of the combs where they're fixed to the plywood. Just cutting them loose. Let them drop. But I can't see at all what I'm doing. It's purely by feel. Got one down. It's just a little empty one. Alright. Not bad. A little bit of open nectar in it.
The lady's not in there, is she?
No queen on that one. Just a little bit of open nectar. A few spots of capped honey. But that's what we're going to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Reach under there and cut them out one at a time. So I'm not going to make y'all sit and watch all that, but that's what we're after. Alright, well, the course of action has changed quite a bit. This is the hole we started in here. And we thought we'd get lucky and have them all in there. I had my doubts. We got all those combs cut out and found a knot hole. There was a knot hole that was letting them get over into this space here. And then we cut open another portion of the floor and found that header board. And there's a whole bunch of combs over there. They look real dusty and white and dirty because I stirred a bunch of stuff up cutting. I'm hoping, well, I know they haven't come past this joist here because we can see to the back of that cavity. That was the original cavity. So this should be all the rest of the combs here. We do hope. So we're going to start cutting them out and looking real diligent for our queen. But that corner right there, again, I mean, that's just outside. That's where we started the video with where they're coming in and out. So there's no combs over here. I just got to figure out how they got from that cavity into this cavity and then over into this cavity. But I mean, just through, you know, a little knot hole or a little crack or something, it doesn't take much, and then that's a super highway. So we'll start cutting out these combs here and see what yeah. So I forgot to show you guys all the rest of the work I did of cutting combs, but it's the same old thing. Cut them out in squares and you know, stick them in the frames. James got on to me and said it wasn't fair if y'all didn't get to see the end. So this is the last one. This frame's got a little bit of honey up top, but primarily it's got a whole bunch of pollen right here in the middle, and that's what I'm after. That's what they need right now in the wintertime. So, just like the rest, band her up, wrap the rubber bands around it. We're good. I did catch the queen. Took a long time, but I finally caught her, and I made my second rookie mistake of the day in that I got excited and I injured her. I don't know what I did. I think I hit her with the cage and somehow injured her. She curled up in a ball and laid real still for a while, like she was like she was dying. But she's in here now. She's moved around a little bit. She smells enough that the bees can smell her and they want to be around her. So hopefully it'll get me through the day anyway, enough to attract the bees. If I get home and she's dead, I'll probably just recombine a smaller nook that I have with this bigger hive, because that's where, you know, this is a big, strong colony. I've got a couple small colonies at home that are holding queens, and I'll just throw her in with them. So that's it for this one. We're cleaning up, packing up, and headed home. So here's your official wrap-up video from the job done yesterday. I put the bees into this hive here in the middle. It was, you know, I did kill the queen. I was hoping she'd pull through, but I really didn't have much faith. But yeah, she's dead. By the time I got home, she was dead. But what I did was, there was the nuke box sitting on top, that was sitting here in this space. And so I went ahead and just combined them with this colony of bees and took that queen and basically re-queened this bigger hive, because I had about 5 pounds of bees, well, 4 pounds of bees from the removal job. So it's certainly a good booster to the colony. All of their combs plus the combs that were in this nuke, I've combined all together into that deep and medium. So between that and a good colony of bees, we should certainly, you know, it was a worthy combine. I wish I could have got a second whole hive out of it, but I'm glad I had that queen and that nuke to use. I've just got the nuke box just sitting up top. There was 1 or 2 combs that had a bunch of open sugar water nectar in it, so I just let that up there for them to rob out. But it looks like they're doing good, and there's plenty of communication on the front of the box. I don't see a lot of fighting, which is good. And I did put the entrance reducer on just to kind of help in case there was some fighting. I caged the queen, very important. I caged her for her protection, because these bees that I added, the new colony that I did from the removal, they didn't recognize her as their queen. So I went ahead and caged her. She's in just a regular sort of, you know, travel cage with a candy plug in, so she should be out in 2 or 3 days and be back to work. Just some interesting points here. I noticed the hive on the left, right here, is bringing in quite a bit of pollen. I don't know where they're getting it from, but I'm very, very happy to see that they're bringing it in. As a bonus feature, yesterday I stopped by and checked on my hives up at the feed store, and this little nuke here, the one that's now in the middle, just to the right of the one that I did the removal on, I found one of the hives at the feed store had laying worker. They lost their queen for some reason, and in the wintertime there's no drones, so they had laying worker, which is kind of ironic because then there are drones once there's laying worker, but there's no fertilized eggs to raise as a new queen. So I brought them home here, and again, I just used their combs to the best of my ability because they had a lot of pollen, so I added them for what it was worth to this hive here. Again, I caged the queen, and I shook all the laying workers out in front on that board, and basically made them, you know, beg for permission to get to go into that hive with that queen. So it should slap them around so they don't keep laying, but if it doesn't, you know, there's 2 or 3 days that they'll be exposed to a queen. Hopefully they'll knock off with laying eggs, but I don't know. We'll just check back in a week or so and see how that hive looks. I did put the feeder on top of this one from the cutout since I took most of their honey. I went ahead and gave them this feeder full of sugar water, and I actually took that off another hive that I had here that they weren't using it anyway. And as for their honey, I'll show you guys where it's at. You know, by practice, I rarely transfer a whole lot of honey. If it's on the corner of a comb that has brood and pollen on, I'll move it, but I don't transfer any combs full of honey, just because in the past I've had a lot of problems with them. You know, they make a big mess, makes a mess of the hive, and I tend to get a small hive beetle problem afterwards. So here is what's left of the honey. I actually gave a lot of the honey away. You guys saw the Hispanic guys in the end of the video. They were enjoying the honey. I gave a lot of it away, but here's what's left of it in these buckets. And you can see we've got quite the feeding frenzy going on. I've actually got a bee just she's crawling on my phone right now, but y'all can't see her. She's up top. I don't know if she'll crawl across the lens or not, but she's all over my phone. So anyway, just want to share that with y'all. That's the wrap up on the video, and that's how it all went.